Hello, everybody. I'm so grateful to hear you all. Thank you so much for coming out. It's Marcus here from High Point Prison, day 248 of being in prison. That's 35 weeks already, or 8 months. 8 months of being separated from my love Holly and her lovely children, and of course my wonderful community, all of you, which is very painful. As you know, the last few weeks and couple months have been very, very difficult because of the distress of the potential deportation, which is of course why you're all here. However, the march today, you know, it's so wonderful to think you've all come out for me. Thank you so much. We do know, however, that the outcome of the deportation cannot be changed by this march. However, it is an expression of solidarity of all of you for my in support for my action, and at the same time it is an expression of solidarity of myself in support of all your actions, because it's the same thing on the other side. So I want to express my gratitude to you all for coming here. I want to express my gratitude for being alive, for life itself, which is best represented in my little prison cell here by the little plants and seedlings I have, which give me so much joy. I've got 3 little apple trees that are about as tall as my hand is wide, and about a dozen little sunflowers, and a tomato plant which has grown taller than my arm is long already, which I get so much joy from. I also want to just be grateful for the interconnectedness of everything, which is obviously expressed in community and support. So thank you so much for all the support that I've received here in prison through the emails and postcards and everything that you guys have done. And also I'm grateful for all the support that I've been able to give because of the support of you to the people around me here, many of whom have it so much more difficult than me and have got years and years of sentences to spend. But I'd like to ask you to allow me to honor my pain today here with you, because being in captivity, being in prison means we're shielded from the outside world to a degree. As you might know, we have a TV in each of the cells, and I get emails printed out, so please keep sending them. That's really much appreciated. But through those, you know, I was able to hear about, for example, the release of the final synthesis of the 6th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, in March, and to hear how devastating it was, their message that they once again spread. And yet I was shocked, you know, to see that it was only for one day that it was on TV that we were able to follow this very important news, which I believe should be talked about every single day, what it means to hear the top scientists. And I was shocked to later find out that the original requirements in the report to phase out all fossil fuels and the requirements for more plant-based diets were not included in the final report, even though that they were in the leaked drafts that were leaked beforehand. So when I think of how we'll very soon pass 1.5 degrees, I feel despair. Because I know 1.5 degrees, even though it's just such a small number, represents untold suffering, untold human suffering, unprecedented. It represents losing so many species forever, and it represents the ever-growing risk of passing more tipping points out of the global stability that our world has known for thousands of generations. So I want to acknowledge my grief and this heavy sadness that regularly brings tears to my eyes when I picture what an ice-free Arctic might look like for the first time, and the consequences for people and life on this planet. And when I think about the children of Tuvalu who are leaving their land en masse because salt water is destroying their nation and their culture, and they will be totally lost as a people. And the grief and sadness, I want to acknowledge that when I think of all the wildfires across the world, there's 1 billion animals and wonderful creatures that died in Australia. You know, you might want to think of the koalas and the kangaroos and the wonderful animals there, the butterflies, and then think how many 1 billion are. So maybe you want to just close your eyes for a moment to picture that suffering, which I'm trying to hold in this secluded environment here in prison. But I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you about how I've known about these detrimental effects of climate breakdown for a very long time, and I've known about the detrimental effects of flying. So before coming to the UK, I was traveling a lot, and I even managed, I traveled far, you know, without flying. I even managed to travel all the way to the United States without flying, just by hitchhiking and helping on a small sailing boat, going from Gibraltar to the Caribbean and so forth. So there's all this travel possible, is what I'm trying to say. I have flown much too much in my life, of course, don't get me wrong. But every year that passes, the situation is getting worse and worse, and the effects of flying are less and less acceptable. So it was very hard for me to hear, after years of trying a myriad of ways of taking climate action myself, and then of course signing the Dartford Crossing with Morgan and hanging a banner, you know, as an emergency cry, you know, like a fire alarm to shout this message so important, to be annoying but hopefully save lives in the bigger picture. I ended up in prison, of course, as you know, and it was very painful to hear in this very restricted environment. When I spoke to my mother a couple of months ago, my mother, whom I really loved, that she was flying. She was flying on an all-inclusive holiday with her partner in Kenya, and that's a very difficult situation to take in. And so I've had to have a few very difficult conversations with her about the situation that we're in and what a crisis response really looks like. And yes, of course, we have to address the system as itself, that the system change is key, the fossil fuel executives, of course, but we in ourselves become symbols in our communities when we, for example, take that step and say flying has become unacceptable, we cannot do it anymore. Then others will see that, and if you have people that say, oh, the plane will take off anyway, then you've got to explain to them about, you know, many people, more people taking that step now. So new airports in this country just simply won't be built because there's less demand and airports won't be expanded. So what about to those families that are still flying because they have family members abroad, and then they say that their families are torn apart? Well, to those we've got to point out that so many families are torn apart that haven't even ever had the chance to fly at all. And what about those, you know, whose whole homelands are being washed away because of the consequences, or people dying all over the place in droughts and so forth? So this is what I wanted to tell you about the situation. I hope that you were able to connect with some of the things I've been able to say. And the fact of the matter is that our societies will have to change beyond recognition, and that we are deluded if we think that we don't need to change for that to happen. So my question to you today is, what is your emergency response? What is it that you are going to change in this crisis? And that keeps bringing me back to the sentence, to tell the truth and act as if the truth was real, which I came back to in my trial a lot in court, to be able to speak to a jury and to really explain the action that we took. And that all really felt like acting as if the truth was real. And of course I'm continuing that here in prison in lots of conversations that I have every day and with you now today. So thanks again so much for coming here today. I'd like to leave you with that question, what your emergency response is. So if I could ask you that favor to turn to someone that's near you that you might not know so very well yet, and just speak to them for 3 minutes each about that question. What's your emergency response? And if you're listening first, then maybe you can ask the person, could you do more? That would be my wish for you for today. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening and for coming out and for supporting me and my family in this very difficult time. I wish you lots of love and rage and all the best.